OTAN, Outreach and Technical Assistance Network.
Okay, thank you so much for joining us today. Our webinar today is How the XPRIZE Codes Unlocks the Winning App for Your Learners. I'm Netta Anasari, and I'm with the Outreach and Technical Assistance Network. And I have Drew Robinson and Vinod Lobo, who will go ahead and introduce themselves. Thank you for joining us.
All right, I'm Drew Robinson with Learning Upgrade, and we're going to be talking about how you can access the Learning Upgrade app. We're winners of the Adult Literacy XPRIZE. So I'll be talking a little bit about that and how you can bring our award-winning app into your adult school programs.
And my name is Vinod Lobo. I'm the founder and CEO of Learning Upgrade. I'm based in San Diego, and I'll be coming on a little bit later to talk about exactly how you can use the individual courses and lessons with your learners and how you would place them and details.
All right, so you'll see that in Zoom, there's a chat feature. So we will be making some time available to answer questions. So if you have any questions that come up during the course of the presentation, feel free to use the chat box and we'll be able to address those at 2 or 3 different times during the presentation here. So to start out, I'm just going to give you a quick video to give you a primer on Learning Upgrade.
Okay, so I used to have problems with math and English. A friend told me about Learning Upgrade for Apple and Android, so I thought I'd try it out. Long story short, it's a lifesaver. Basically, it's packed with over 900 lessons complete with songs, videos, games, and more that truly help you learn, not just memorize. It's perfect for just about all ages, and the best part, I can learn at my own pace. And I don't have to keep going over things I already know. So listen, if you're struggling or just want to get better, get Learning Upgrade. It works.
All right, so a little bit about us. We're a San Diego-based company. We've been around for 2 decades, and we just reached a milestone of having over 2 million learners go through the Learning Upgrade courses. Our introduction into adult education has been one that started out slow and has just grown, every single year over the last 3 or 4 years here. And so what really was the catalyst for that growth was the Adult Literacy XPRIZE. And so for those of you that aren't familiar, the Barbara Bush Foundation Adult Literacy XPRIZE was a $7 million global competition to see if a private company could develop an app that would make meaningful gains in the academic performance of adult learners. So it started out with a bunch of different applicants across the entire world, and they cut it down to a little over 100 teams for that first cut. Then we made the semifinalist of 8. Then we made the finalist with 5 teams. And then we found out just this February that we were the grand prize winners. So what does it mean? So, as part of the large field test for the XPRIZE, there was a 16-month field test with 12,000 adult learners. And that was in Los Angeles, Dallas, and Philadelphia. And what they did is they used the CASAS test, and they had that 12 months apart. So they did the pre and the post test, and they had it for their low literate adults. So that means a 3rd grade reading level or lower. And, our app was able to get gains over that 12-month period. Most importantly, not only were we able to get gains with those adult learners, but when they compared the groups that use Learning Upgrade versus the groups that didn't use Learning Upgrade, but were still in a classroom setting, the gains were greater than what the learners would have experienced just, alone in a classroom setting. So, that's really, the start of our, what's been, exponential growth and just explosive growth in adult education, especially in the last year. But this is something that started for us over the last 3 years. And, our courses used to just be available on the web. And, for the XPRIZE, the criteria was that you had to have an app. And it couldn't just be an app that was on iOS. It had to be an Android app. And the reason for that is the majority of our low literate adults have Android phones. And for us as a company, it couldn't just be an app that worked on the highest end Android phones. The R&D team went out and bought all of the lowest end $50 blue phones, made sure that our app worked on any smartphone. And so now we have an iOS and an Android app that's available to all of your learners. So that's a primer on the XPRIZE, the competition. And so the second phase of the XPRIZE is, they invested a lot of money, and they've announced winners. But the real goal is to take these apps that have been proven and validated and put them into the hands of, the 30 plus million low literate adults in the United States. And so that's why they came up with this communities competition. So as part of the communities competition, adult literacy communities throughout the United States could apply to become a team. And these teams, 46 were selected. And now these 46 teams are going to have, free and unlimited access to our app. And all of the users that are on Android phones, through the App Store, Google Play, will have an entire year additional on top of that. So everybody gets free access. Open enrollment started on April 1 and ends April 31st. So any program, any teacher gets access to our iOS and Android devices. And the teachers also get free tracking accounts with reporting and account management. And so I'm going to be showing you, how you can sign up for that, how to get started, and how to onboard your learners. But first, what I wanted to look at is, these are four of the largest programs here. And so for any of you that are members of these teams, you can use these as your team codes. So again, there's 46 total communities competition teams. So you can use the code for your team. And I'm going to have Ned on here to tell you a little bit more about this.
So I just wanted to add that OTAN really is supporting the fact that we would love to see learning upgrade in the use of students in their hands at their mobile devices, but we're not advocating or endorsing any particular association or any particular code. But we did want to give you full access to all what's available, and you choose what code you'd like to use at your agency. So I just wanted to plug that in as Drew's presenting and just let you know that we're really supporting the app being in students' mobile devices in their hands so that they are learning and their literacy levels go up. So thank you, Drew, for allowing me to add that.
All right, thank you. All right, so, just to quickly go over why smartphones. Why did the Adult Literacy XPRIZE and Barbara Bush Foundation choose smartphones? Adult learners love their smartphones. When they first launched the prize 3 years ago, this is the data they were able to collect, and these numbers have only grown. So 80% of our low-income adults have smartphones, and 1/3 of those are mobile only. So that means that's the only internet access they have. They don't have any other internet access at home. It's not like a lot of us where we have our smartphones, we have our laptops, and we have our tablets. We can connect to the internet at work, we can connect at home. A lot of our adult learners, and this is a growing number, are mobile only. So they have their data plan, and then they utilize Wi-Fi throughout the day, and all of their connection goes through the smartphone. So the reason that's important is that, since 80% of our low-income adults have smartphones, the phone skills are there. And so they have that digital literacy required to launch the phone, launch the app, and start playing. And so when we were, in computer labs, there was a learning process where we had to get our learners, this is how you start up a computer, this is how you launch your browser, type in the URL. That was an entire process in and of itself. We're finding an explosion in time on task with the app just because there's no training that needs to be done. Everybody knows how to launch an app on their phone. And then since they rely on their phones so heavily, the phones are always working. And as we all know, I think we can all put ourselves in this group here, but our phones are always with us. Okay, and so every time that you have a free moment now, you have a learning opportunity. And so this is something we heard anecdotally from, a lot of our learners beforehand. And now we have lots of data that I'll be able to show you and reports you'll be able to view in your tracking accounts that validates this. But, you could be waiting, for the bus, you could be at the dentist, waiting for your kid's appointment, or you could just be laying in bed, ready to go to sleep. but now every free moment is a learning opportunity. So before, we had to rely on computer labs or labs at the library for learners to get that time on task. And now you can really focus on instruction in your classroom time and provide the Learning Upgrade app to your learners to get that extra work when they're outside of the classroom. So what is Learning Upgrade? I just want to give you a quick overview of the Learning Upgrade in the app. So we have 21 total courses, 960 lessons that are CCRS aligned. Every single one of our lessons uses songs, video, games, and rewards to teach. And every single one of these lessons is going to be available on any web-enabled device. So your learners can, they have their username and password. They can log in using a Chromebook at school. Then they can take out their tablet at home and pick up right where they left off. And all of this is going to be fed to your tracking account, and you get that continuous assessment report that you'll be able to view all of this in real time. So now I just want to play you a quick video on the dynamic of the app. This is what plays when your learners first get started. So when they start their account, they're going to launch the Learning Upgrade app, and this video is going to walk them through what they're going to be playing from that point on. Okay, so there we go.
Welcome to Learning Upgrade, where you can learn English and math the fun way. The lessons are filled with music, video, games, and rewards. You can start at your level and keep moving up at your own pace. You start on the Courses screen. Select the highlighted course to start. In the Lessons screen, you start on Lesson 1. When you earn 100 points with over 75% correct, you can move up to the next lesson. You will earn a bronze medal for lessons over 75%, a silver for over 90%, and a gold for over 95%. When all of your lessons are complete, you will earn a bronze certificate. You can review to move up to a silver and gold certificate. Then you can move on up to the next course. Ready to learn English and math the fun way? Let's get started.
All right, so now I'm going to have Vinod tell you a little bit about the app design and a little bit behind the development of the lessons here.
Okay, so what you're looking at here is our home screen of the app. Whether they play on the web or on a phone or on an iPad, it looks like this when they log in. We have 6 English courses, English K1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the 1 through 5 map to the NRS levels, 1 through 5 for our students. Each one of these courses has 60 lessons, and each one takes 20 to 30 hours to complete. So either you can place a student on one of these lessons, courses, or you can use the Learning Upgrade placement test. And then the students will be placed into one of these. Then they'll finish the course and move up. Same with the math. In the math, we have 600 lessons in 10 courses, all the way from counting, all the way up to algebra. And then we also have these brand new courses, GED Math and HiSET Math. Those came out about 6 months ago, but they've just exploded in popularity. Even through the XPRIZE Communities competition, those courses are being used a lot for GED and HiSET Math. Okay, so this is what one of our courses looks like. So if you place a learner in English 1, they will start on the alphabet and move up through the letter sounds and CVC words and high frequency words, and be reading sentences and paragraphs, also working on grammar and punctuation, reading and writing sentences and paragraphs. When a student goes through this, they will have to earn 75% or higher to move to the next lesson. And then ultimately, when they finish the whole course, they'll have to come back, and any lessons below 90%, they'll have to repeat them, and then get a silver certificate, and finally a gold certificate when they're all above 95, and then they can move on to English 2. So what we're trying to do is create a continuous stream of lessons where they can go from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5, and we call that binge learning, so that learners never stop, okay? So what you're looking at here is our lesson list. If you go to learningupgrade.com and click on courses, you can look at this list in detail. If you look at the lesson list, you'll see that if you have new arrivals, for example, we work with the Somali Bantu Association in San Diego, and we've had 300 learners enrolled there, and they're non-literate in any language. We've had a lot of success with them, and they start at English K, because English K starts at the alphabet, goes very slowly through the letter sounds, and does a lot of vocabulary work, including colors and shapes and numbers. English 1 is where you would put a beginning ESL student who has some basic oral vocabulary, and English 2 works on the more advanced letter sounds and getting into reading paragraphs. By the time you get to English 3, we're not doing fluency anymore. So now you're starting to read multiple paragraphs. You're working on advanced grammar, like your regular nouns and verbs, and main idea, author's purpose, and tone. Once you get to English 4, you're starting to read science and social studies textbooks. You're getting more deeply involved with comprehension and informational text. You're also reading poems and plays and learning structure and connections. And then English 5 is all the way at the advanced level, where you can actually read 2 passages on the same topic and compare and contrast them. It's often used for GED and HiSET prep, or for preparing for vocational or TABE training. Okay, so these are some placement tables that are often used, and they show you the mapping of NRS levels or NRS ESL levels to our courses. It also maps the CASAS and TABE levels or scores to our courses, and finally has the CCRS levels. So this is one way that you can use your own internal CASAS test scores to decide where to put a student on Learning Upgrade. And once they use the courses, once they get placed, they can use any device. So they can jump around between your computers and your tablets and their cell phones and tablets. So what we're going to do now is play you a quick demo of one of the lessons. This is author's purpose from the second course, English 2.
Author's purpose is the reason why she wrote a passage. There are 5 different reasons why the author writes a passage. He's writing to inform, means to state, teach or explain, instructions on a notice board. He's writing to persuade, means to convince, argue or prove. Vote for me for president. She's writing to narrate, tell a sequence of events, tell a story, a Harry Potter book. She's writing to describe, create a picture. We got a bright red convertible. He's writing to entertain, means to amuse, tell a joke, get a laugh or two. The author's purpose is the reason why she wrote this passage.
Read this passage and then press I understand. How about this question? Nope. If you look at the sentence about the white elephant sale, you can see it is to sell something you don't need to someone else who needs it. Here's another. That's it.
All right, so there you get a feel for the gameplay of the app. The learners, they get the instruction in the form of a song first, and then after they have the instruction, they go and they answer questions. And so they need to get 100 points for every single lesson in order to move on to the next one, and they need a minimum score of 75%. And so what you saw there that's important is when they do get answers incorrectly, they get that instant feedback, and we show them the correct answer and how to get it. So this is really important with literacy and math. This isn't just multiple choice where we're going to be putting a bunch of correct answers with letters. They're going to see it, they're going to hear it, they're going to be able to see the answers moving. Text is going to be highlighted in paragraphs. In math, they're going to see the graph. Numbers are going to be moving on the plot. And so every single one that they answer, it's really important for us to show that. So now that we've seen introduce the Learning Upgrade app and introduce the courses, I just want to briefly touch on some deployment models. And so here we have quite a few that we've developed over the last year, starting with the XPRIZE and then expanding with a bunch of different other groups that have helped us develop this. And so the first one, that's the Adult Literacy XPRIZE. And so there, we had that field test where we got 12,000 adult learners onboarded. And so we were able to get everybody onboarded in a short period of time. And then the learners were self-motivated. And so they, took out their smartphones, they completed lessons, but there was no ability for a teacher, an admin, or a tutor to really, help motivate and keep everybody on track. So we were able to win the XPRIZE, and we had phenomenal results, even with that lower accountability model. But we've seen those scores grow quite a bit more when we get to use, the blended model, where we have the phenomenal adult educators and tutors and what's set up already in place. And so that's the community college and adult school blended model. And so I'm going to, play a short video from one of our close partners, which is Sweetwater Adult School, to talk a little bit more about that. But the model breaks down to they have their in-class time where the teacher gets to meet with the students. And so they're able to work on learning upgrade in the classroom, also get their standard instruction, and then they're able to complete lessons at home, complete lessons on the weekend to supplement that education. We have our library literacy program model. And we've developed this with some of the biggest libraries in the United States. And the big model there is kind of, really stemmed from the need to address the wait list. And so with a lot of our libraries, we have learners that come in, they're excited, they're motivated, and they want to make a change. They know that there's an area of need that they need to address. And then they're told there's going to be a 3 to 6 month wait before they can meet with a tutor. And so what a lot of these libraries are now doing is the moment that learner comes in, they have them take out their smartphone, they download the Learning Upgrade app, and then that learner is able to complete lessons while they're waiting. And by the time a tutor does get to meet with them, they have this, this beautiful assessment, and they're able to dive in on that very first day, addressing the specific needs of that adult learner. And I'm going to be able to show you how they do that using our reporting in the slides ahead. We also have our family learning model. And this one is, helped been developed, here in California with some of the migrant education programs. And with this one, we're enrolling all of the parents in Learning Upgrade in our Saturday academies. And then we also enroll their children. And so this is powerful because, a lot of the times, we think it's going to be the parent tutoring the kids. But in a lot of our ESL family learning models, most cases, it's the children who are helping the parents with the English upgrade lessons. And so, having that family learning environment, we see that time on task jump, and then we also see the student performance jump. Then the last one is our non-traditional programs. So as Vinod mentioned, we work with the Somali Bantu Association. We also work with UMI Learning Center for those refugee centers. We work in housing, YMCA. Workforce is a new one for us, but we started working with one of the largest meat manufacturing plants in the United States. We also work with hotel chains, and they provide learning upgrade In some cases as a bridge to their workforce education. A lot of the times their employees, their literacy skills aren't where they need to be to take advantage of the investment the company's made in the workforce programs. And so they can take Learning Upgrade, improve their literacy skills, and now they can take advantage of the workforce education. For others, they're using it more as a social good. They're using it as a benefit. And so the learners they're their employees, but then they also get to use Learning Upgrade just to improve their daily life. So here I'm going to show you, this is, the first group that we did before we found out about any results with the XPRIZE. And this is Sweetwater Adult School. And so they helped us develop that blending model. But they have, 20 offsite locations, more than 25,000 adult learners. So this is a massive adult school. And so what we wanted to do when we first started working with them is just to test the app. They had been working with us on computers, so they knew and we knew that Learning Upgrade was effective for adult learners, but we wanted to be able to compare a group that's using Learning Upgrade on computers versus a group that's using Learning Upgrade with smartphones. And most importantly, we wanted to see how the outcomes of the learners with smartphones would change. So you'll see here, our first pilot, we just started with 20 learners. And the biggest surprise we got is on day one, 18 of them were able to download the Learning Upgrade app right then and there. And so that was the first step for us. We saw the data from the Adult Literacy XPRIZE. We, had stats on how many adults would have smartphones, but to see it in real time, to see everybody just pull out their smartphone and download the app, we knew that was a positive sign. And then the biggest one that we saw is they were averaging about 1.5 hours per week time on task for their learners before we released the smartphone app. And then after we released it, that number jumped to 4 hours. The big thing there is when we started looking at the sessions and seeing when these lessons were being completed, a lot of it was late at night, early in the morning. But the key takeaway is that it was in a lot of those hours that they weren't in class. And so that's when that, every free moment was becoming a learning opportunity. But the most important thing there is, looking at their learners with a CASAS of 210 or below. In that 10-week pilot, the average was 7.8 point gain. So that was huge for us because we knew that we needed to show 10 points over the course of the year for the XPRIZE criteria. So when we saw that we were almost at 8 points in only a 10-week period at Sweetwater Adult, that we were on the right track. Now I just want to play a short video where you can hear from the lead instructor that we worked on this pilot with at Sweetwater Adult.
Hi, my name is Lisa Sharman, and I am an ESL instructor for Sweetwater Adult Education in Chula Vista, California. I teach at an elementary campus parents of students that attend the elementary school. So after attending the Learning Upgrade workshop, I quickly went back to class and shared what this app that I really liked and enjoyed when I went to the in-service. I asked the students to, if they had a smartphone, to get their phone out and download the app from the store, and it's free, so they were very excited about that.
I am Abril Parra, and using Learning Upgrade. Sometimes I use it while I wait for my doctor's appointment, my dentist appointment, and sometimes I use it in the evening when my child are working on his homework. And basically I'm right now in the 51 exercise, and I really like it. I think it helps you a lot. For me, it helps me for the nouns because I was kind of having trouble with that, and I think it's very helpful.
I'm using in other place with the stay in the bus. I'm learning, I'm studying the bus. For me, it's very practical because I don't need books, I don't need pencil, and only my phone, and I'm studying.
El programa de Learning Up es muy bueno para mí. Siento que estoy aprendiendo mucho. Me gusta porque es muy fácil de estudiar. Lo estudio como voy mucho al doctor con mi niño. estudio mucho en el espacio de que él está con el doctor, o cuando vengo en el bus, vengo estudiando, es fácil de entrar, lo traigo en mi teléfono. La música y los sonidos son muy buenos. A mí me gusta mucho porque te motiva a seguir y estás, o sea, moviéndote, pero a la vez estás aprendiendo y escuchando, aprendiendo y moviéndote. O sea, es muy bueno.
Hi, my name.
All right, so now I want to talk about getting started at your sites. What I want to cover here is, kind of the core of, how we deploy at, every program, whether it's small or large, is everything's built around these 4 steps. So number 1 is teacher training. And so the first part of the teacher training is today. And then we also have another webinar planned in 2 weeks where we're going to dive a little deeper into the reporting, the student onboarding, and the motivation part in step 4. But today I just want to cover all of these briefly to give you an idea of how you get started, and more importantly, how you can get a learning upgrade license for your site now. So everything starts on the very first step. Is you can just go to learningupgrade.com. This is what our homepage currently looks like. And in the main menu, you'll see where it says pilot request. You'll click on pilot request and you can just fill out your site information. So you'll put in your first name and last name. It's just some general information about your school, the number of students that you'd like to pilot learning upgrade with. And then at the bottom, you're going to see where it says, are you a communities competition team? And that's where, if you're a member of one of those 46 communities competition team participants, you can enter your 4-digit code. So again, just go to learningupgrade.com and click on pilot request. You'll be able to fill that out, and then I'll be able to get your site set up. Step 2 is based on, going to be student onboarding. So the vast majority of our adult schools like to use our student self-enrollment, and that's where you just have one 7-digit code. They're able to download the app on their own. They enter this 7-digit code during their enrollment process, and then they're automatically going to show up in your tracking account. So there's no onboarding that needs to be done by the teacher. The learners can, be on a self-guided path. That's based around our onboarding parties. And so what we like to see here is, for the classrooms that are blended, where you do have your learners coming into a physical classroom, set up like 30 to 40 minutes aside and have your learners come in, and you can use these slides. We also have a nice getting started guide on the website, and you'll be able to walk your learners through the exact steps of self-enrollment. So for student self-enrollment, you're going to fill out that pilot request. After I see that request come in, I'm going to send you an email, and you'll have a section here at the very top that says student self-enrollment. You'll see in the link it says PDF class code sheet. With that one sheet, you can print that out and hand that to all of your students. Then you'll see at the bottom, you can click log in. You'll have your own teacher tracking username and password with a school ID, and you'll be able to log in using that to track all of your student progress. So when you do click on that PDF class code sheet, you're going to get a 1-pager. The top is going to look like this. You'll get a unique 7-digit code at the top, and that 7-digit code, that's the class code that your learners are going to use when they're self-enrolling. And then they're going to get instructions, steps 1 through 4, on exactly how they can go through it. So for those of you that can't do an onboarding party, you can print this 1-page PDF off. You can text, email, or print it out and hand it to your learners, and they'll be able to get started on their own. So I just want to show you, there's actually screenshots on this getting started guide when you click it from your email. But for those of you that are going to do an onboarding party, I just want to briefly walk you through the steps of how your learners self-enroll. So they download the Learning Upgrade app. It's available on iOS through the App Store and on Android through the Play Store. After launching the app, they can click Get Started. After clicking Get Started, they'll be able to select an English or a math track. And so all 21 courses are available for this communities competition license here. So in this case, we're going to click on English. When you click on English, now the learner gets to pick their course. So they can pick any of the 6 English courses by clicking on K and then 1 through 5 if they want to start there. For your pre-literate adults or non-literate adults, you can click on beginning. That'll just start them on the very first learning upgrade lesson. And then you can also, if you're not quite sure where the learner is and they're not quite sure where to start, they can click on placement. And then when they first get into the courses, we're going to run them through an assessment. And after the assessment, the Learning Upgrade app is going to enroll them in the appropriate course based on their performance. Now, as Vinod showed you when he was going over the courses, we had those enrollment tables. So if your learners have already taken a longer form assessment, you can use those tables to enroll in any of these courses. After selecting their course, this is going to be the most important step here. So the learners are going to enter their first name, last name, and then on your Getting Started guide, that 7-digit class code at the top, they're going to be able to enter that class code in the class code field there, and that's what's going to link them to your account. After they click go, they're going to get their username, password, and school ID, and this is what's going to allow the learner to log in on any web-enabled device. This is going to automatically be linked in their app so they can just keep playing on their current smartphone. But if they want to log in using a different device or they want to log in at school, they'll be able to use this username, password, and school ID, and they can pick up right where they left off. After clicking go on this one, they're going to see the courses page. So, what we like to see in our onboarding parties is to have our learners not just get to this, but to actually click on their course, so in this case, English Upgrade 2, and complete 1 or 2 lessons. And we can get them completing 1 or 2 lessons during the onboarding party. We see that time on task jump. For those of you, this is going to be for the communities competition. You saw that the communities competition teams have those 4-digit team codes. So we're going to display that code in the bottom here. This is just a generic 1, 2, 3, 4. But whichever team you're signing up with, that code will display. And when you see that code displaying at the bottom of the student's page, you'll know that it was a successful self-enrollment, and that learner will have that free access during the competition time period. So that's everything in the Getting Started self-enrollment for the learner. And here's some best practices, tips for those of you that would like to do an onboarding party. The big one is the pre-party. So you want to build awareness, have some promotions, let your learners know, set a date. The big one is making sure that everybody downloads the app before your onboarding party. And so we thought the big issue would be internet connection, people, not being able to access the Wi-Fi at the school. But almost all of our adult learners are pretty savvy in that regard. They can get online, no problem. The issue is usually in regards to the logins for their actual app store. So for Apple, they need their Apple ID and password. For the Play Store, they need their Google login. And so sometimes if they're sharing phones or it was set up by another family member, they might not know the password, then they'll be locked out from downloading the app. So it's nice to have this resolved before your onboarding party, and when everybody comes in, the app will already be downloaded. Then there's the party prep, have those one-pagers printed out, have it projected on a board. You can get these slides and you'll be able to go do the steps, one at a time, just like I did. And then once the learners have their accounts created, as I mentioned, it's really nice to be able to have them complete 1 or 2 lessons. And then once your learners are completing lessons, they're going to be, on their own working towards that certificate. And now you as a teacher can log in using your username, password, and school ID and view the reporting. So that's number 3. That's step number 3, is motivating and tracking your learners. So as you saw in that video at the beginning, when a learner finishes all 60 lessons in a course, they're going to earn a certificate. And those learners are going to be working on their own. But what we really want to look out for is any of the learners that are falling behind, so they're not logging in. Maybe they're struggling with a content area and having a difficult time moving from one lesson to the next. Issues if, maybe they, were on a prepaid phone, they no longer have one, or they, are using one phone for an entire family. Finding ways for your learners to access accounts if they don't have a dedicated smartphone. And then, for new learners, so you had your onboarding party, in adult ed, we have a lot of turnover. So you might have 50 learners at the beginning of the school year. 2 months later, you could have 20 or 30 new learners in your class. So, using your reports and using your teacher tracking account, you'll be able to make sure that all of your current and active learners have access, and that any of your new learners know how to get started. So the biggest part of that motivation and tracking is utilizing our reports. And so this first one here, this is the report that's most used by our teachers. And this is what we call the student monitor. And so we have the names removed here, but in your student monitor, when you're in your account, the names are going to show, and then you're going to see an abbreviation for the course that the learner's in. So in this case, they're all in English Upgrade 1. We use M1 for Math Upgrade 1. And so we have those abbreviations for the course. You'll see 1 through 60 above. Each course has 60 lessons, and each tile is going to represent a lesson in that course. And then at the far right, for your learners that have completed an entire course, they'll be able to click on any one of those. You'll be able to click on a certificate and print it out, and they'll also be able to click on that certificate in their own course. So what's important here that you'll want to use as an instructor is you can launch the student monitor during your onboarding parties, and you'll be able to see in real time when your learners are completing those lessons. So on that very first day, each learner is going to be a blank slate, and you'll be able to see in real time each one of these lessons as they're completed. When you're viewing this report live, you'll be able to hover over any one of these tiles and get real-time data on performance, the number of times played, the name of the lesson. And so for the learners that are getting all gold, as you see here, you can just sit back and watch them, progress towards their certificate. What you want to keep an eye out for as an instructor is when you see a lot of bronze, and most importantly, when you see red. So if you see red, that means that your learner didn't get 75%, and they have to repeat that lesson to mastery. So they have to play it again in order to move on to the next one. If they got bronze, that means they got anywhere from 75% to 89%. So if you just eyeball this student monitor here, you can see that third learner from the bottom. They might be struggling with English Upgrade 1. And so what you want to do is you want to hover over those tiles, and you can hover over the red one, and it might tell you that the learner played it 3 or 4 times. They've spent an hour on it, and their high score is still a 48. So that's a great opportunity for an instructor or a tutor to work with that learner on that specific lesson. So this is the student monitor, and this is the one that our teachers use for that, that real-time tracking for an entire class. So, let's say this learner that's third from the bottom is struggling. Now we want to dive in and say, okay, well, it's one thing to, say this learner is struggling, but how do we get in and see exactly where they're struggling? So every single one of these courses has an individualized course report. And so what you can do is view an individualized course report. And so you're going to get one of these for every course that the learner is working on. At the very top, you're going to get content area scores. So you'll see there the table's a little cut off. You see language, grammar, vocabulary, spelling, but we do content blocks for every one of the courses so you can get a quick view. And then in the graph, you're going to see lessons 1 through 60 from left to right like the student monitor, but now it's just going to be for one learner. The blue is going to be their initial score, and then the orange is going to be their high score. So you can see here that the learner initially struggled, with lessons 18 and 19. So that's write a passage and compare and contrast. But then what they were able to do is repeat those lessons to mastery. They moved them up to 100%. So this is a good example of a student who performed poorly initially and then moved the scores up. What you want to look for when you're just eyeballing this report is any valley that hasn't been filled in. That means the learner's struggling on a content area, but they haven't yet filled it in with that orange. It'll just be an empty white valley. And that's a good opportunity to see which lessons your learner struggled on. So again, this is, just a quick way. Again, you can hover over any one of these data points and get real-time data on those lessons, just like the student monitor. But once you eyeball the graph, you say, okay, they struggled on these lessons, then you can keep scrolling down and you're going to get a chance to see a table that'll give you all the data on what the graph was showing you. And so the important thing that you can take from this one here is we like to look at times played. That's usually a good indication of how a learner's performing on a lesson. And so if we just quickly go down, if they're playing it one time, that means they played the lesson one time and passed it. Twice, they didn't get 75% on the first one, but on their next attempt, they did. That's usually what we tend to see. But if you ever see those that are in that 4, 5, and 6, some of them can be even higher, 7 to 10. If it's taking them 7 attempts to get through this one, say absolute value, They did eventually get 100, but they spent 2 hours working on it. So as a tutor or an instructor, if you're viewing these individualized course reports, you can see these content areas that your learners are struggling with and work with them on those. So that's the student monitor and the individualized course reports. That's what we use for real-time data on our class, and then when we want to view how our students are doing. We also have reports that let you see the big picture as a teacher or an admin. And so this report here, this is our student progress report by date. This is going to give you a table-based view of the student monitor. So you're going to see your student names, and then you're also going to be able to see their last played, their hours played, and then exactly how they're performing on each course. The difference here is that you're going to be able to select a start date and an end date. So if you just want to see how much activity took place over the weekend, how much activity took place over the last quarter, over the last year, this is a report that's going to allow you to do that. You just select your start date and your end date, and then we'll tell you how much time on task was spent during all that, in your time parameter there. What you can also do is you can, this one we're going to show you one course per row. So we'll see at the top there, Isaacs and English Upgrade 1, English Upgrade 3, and Math Upgrade 1. We allow you to group by English or Math. So if you want to see English totals, we'll tell you how much time they've spent on English. And then we also do all totals. So when we do all, each student goes down to one row, and then we're just going to show you how much time they've spent on Learning Upgrade together. You'll see that those hours played are links, so you can click the link and you can view session reports, but we also have a brand new report that's going to focus on the session time. And so this one here is our student time report. So this one here, you'll see we've removed names on this one. This isn't from a demo account, but you can do the same. You set your start date and your end date, and then we're going to give you everything you need to know about their sessions. So you'll see their start time and end time for each session, how many minutes they spent during that, their score, the course they were working on, and then also the device. And so this is helpful if you have them working in a lab at your site. You have them working and you can see, okay, those are the ones that are on Windows, or you might see Linux if they're working on Chromebooks. And then you can see if they're working, on their Android or iOS mobile device at home. You can see that by the device, and then you can also see that by the time. And then we'll give you subtotals for all of your learners there. So this one is our student time report. It's a great option for monitoring that time on task for your learners. So, in that process, we've done our, intro into teacher training. And then the second is our onboarding students, showed you how to onboard. Then you want to look at the reporting to get everybody, motivated and making sure nobody falls behind. And then after viewing the reports, we've worked with the learners that are struggling, but now we want to celebrate the student success. And so, a lot of our adult learners, they haven't had a lot of academic success in their careers. And so it's really important to make a big deal when they do have the success. And so here, this is from UMI Learning Center. They actually had a party where they had all of the learners, come for an evening event. They printed off their learning upgrade certificates on gold leaf paper. They called everybody up by name, and they got to be recognized in front of their peers and in front of their family. And it was incredible to see that after this first event, the number of certificates that were earned, skyrocketed for the next one. Everybody wanted to be up on that stage. And so that they did these custom ones. You can also print the certificates, as I showed, through the student monitor on your own as a teacher. And so it's really important to celebrate that student success. And so now, I just want to just touch on again, applying for your tracking account for your site. The first thing you'll want to do is go to learningupgrade.com. You'll click on pilot request, and on the pilot request page, you'll just fill in the information about your site. And then if you're going to be a member for a communities competition team, make sure to enter that 4-digit code in the field that asks for that. And so, that's everything I wanted to cover today for our first webinar. If you have any questions, feel free to unmute yourself and ask, or you can enter them into the chat. I've seen that Vinod has entered in quite a few links here. So if you want to view our courses page, on the courses page, you'll view our tables and our lesson lists. You'll also see on Adult Ed page some videos and information on our models. And then there's also links to this pilot request page in the chat. So if you want a quick link to those ones, it is in the chat right now. And then if you have any questions, feel free to open up for right now.
Thank you, Drew and Vinod. Thank you for our participants. We really appreciate it. And we'll see you online soon.